Hello, welcome back to Dadpuzzles. We're very fortunate today. We have a international bestseller, a coach, entrepreneur. There's so many titles, and he's very popular among podcasters. News channels everywhere, my friend. So let me just stop there and let me introduce to you today, Nick Jonsson. Welcome, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Solomon. It's fantastic to be here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So for people that do not know you, how can please introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, so my name is Nick, and I was born in Sweden, and then I was educated in Australia, and I have lived and worked the last 20 years in Southeast Asia, mainly in countries such as Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia. And there I worked up my way through the career ladder. And these days, though, I left the corporate world and I'm more running my own business as a coach and also doing workshops, keynotes, and as well as having a peer network, a peer to peer coaching network.
That is amazing. So, wow, where do we start? So where did you get this idea of the entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so as I was in the corporate world, I always felt that I didn't feel really safe. As I believe these days that, job security is an illusion. Companies only care for profits, and you never know when something will happen, and you'll be the first to go if they need to save money. And it happened to me. It happened twice in my career that I was let go. And that made me very anxious. And I thought, this is not the way that I can go forward. I need to have something that I'm responsible for, where I make the decisions if I should be let go or not. So yeah, I had this seed planted inside my head already from having been let go twice for unfortunate reasons. And then eventually I pulled the plug about 10 years ago, and I started my own journey as an entrepreneur.
Oh, this is amazing. But I don't think you're surprised though, because I've in the corporate world, I think this idea of letting go people is quite common, my friend. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I was surprised each time because, when you work for an organization, you put your heart into it and
Right.
you're very busy and you are so focused on what you're doing that in my case, I didn't have an updated CV when I was let go. I was completely surprised both times. I was just completely shocked. And then, for the shock to settle, before I had even updated my CV and applied for jobs, it had already gone a month or 2 months. And then the anxiety and the worries that you have with that, it was just too
Right.
much for me to handle.
Well, I'm so happy that you really did something about it and you actually overdid it. So this is amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I remember when I was in the corporate. I'm still in the corporate world, but I'm not in. I'm not higher up as before. But you always see every 2 3 years, big change. They bring new, like new folks and people. I mean, it was like a custom. Like it was a very. I did not like that lifestyle really. Like you mentioned, is but so today we'll be definitely touching about this loneliness when you're high up, like in the in the executive realm. So for folks that are in that, please, I want you to go ahead and write some comments or questions about that my friend can address, because he has great experience on that, and he's a certified coach, and he has been in the in your shoes, as in that corporate world. So please go ahead and comment in the comments below here. One second, I'm gonna give them a chance here to do that. Make sure that we are very interactive today, just for the first time here. One second, see, please comment any questions for our great guest. Like, yes. Sorry, I'm the makeup artist. I'm the host. I'm everything.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir. Okay, so my friend, while we are, now that we're here, so hopefully folks will go ahead and comment, my friend, and ask you great questions. We can go ahead and dive into this. So let's talk a little bit about mental health and leadership, my friend. So what can leaders foster a culture of open dialogue about mental health in the organization? Because a lot of times in the healthcare, a lot of doctors, they worry about talking about that because they feel like, oh, I'll be deemed incompetent, or what I mean, like not only in the healthcare, I'm sure in other fields as well, because when people they're honest, they feel vulnerable, so how can you fix this, my friend?
Yes, and I think this is a perfect question because actually my last role in the corporate world was with a big medical organization. So I was a general manager overseeing managing 72 hospitals and clinics in Indonesia. So I was
Mhm.
working with doctors, nurses, and managing the operations of this. And I do remember, everyone being very cautious, especially around the mental health. Physical
Mhm.
health, yes, we were in the medical facility. We would do blood tests and we will know, and we will look at each other test and see how is your liver works and so on, and chatting. But there was no one really talking about the mental health side of things. And that was still stigmatized, even in a medical facility. And indeed, it was quite lonely and quite isolating, also the work culture, especially, being a foreigner then coming from Europe working in Asia. It tended to be separate, that the locals had their own sort of gatherings, and they went for lunch together and the foreigners went separately. So it was already this segregation, and it can be quite natural due to language barriers and so on, that people
Right.
stick together. And therefore, being in that work environment, I remember feeling myself, isolated and feeling not so close to most of the staff, which were locals. And that was
Mhm.
something that was really, really hard for me. So that's when I started to look at this, and with isolation. And when I finally left then the corporate world, I started to interview and talk to other executives about this. And what I found was then that the key and the answer here, and you will keep hearing this from me many times today, is vulnerability. We need to, as leaders and as human beings, to be vulnerable ourselves. We cannot expect someone to open up and come close to us if we are a closed book ourselves. I was closed when I was in the corporate world, and therefore I didn't have the strong connections with my teams.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. So what other strategies can men use to like you're gonna shift balance a little bit here. This
Mm.
is very important, so this message should be to the leaders. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be frank and open to the folks, because a lot of times, we folks in the lower end, we think, oh yeah, those guys are doing great, everything is, or like they live in nice places, they have higher salary. It's like
Mm.
there's this and when they come in, it's just the commands or what to do, but there's no or how's your kids, what happened, like there's no that intermingling as much. So folks needs to intermingle, and they need to be more vulnerable, as Nick has mentioned. That's amazing, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to have these conversations. I mean, we can be vulnerable on a
Mhm.
one-on-one level, and we don't have to disclose too much, but it's having a bit of small talk and at least showing that we're human, being a bit curious, exposing a little bit about ourselves. If we've gone through some challenges, what did we go through? What did we learn from it? And if we are sharing something about ourselves, then naturally, when the other person have something on their mind or they are going through something the next time, then they will come to you and they will open up to you. And that's how we as human beings are building relationships. We can do that one on one, we can do that in a team environment. If anyone is a leader of a company or leader of a department, they
Mhm.
can set the scene. The leader can start by opening up and sharing something in a human way. So just break down the work culture to be more open.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. So, how can dads and parents in general uh, be able to balance their family part and the work part, and also without compromising their mental well-being? Because sometimes you can be overwhelmed and you still have to go through the routine, like you got to deal with the family, not deal, like you got to but participate and be there for the family, and you also have to be productive at work, and sometimes it can be too much at work. So how do you get to maintain your mental well-being, my?
Want real results that last? Stop wasting time on quick fixes. A no fat approach to sustainable fitness, radiant health, and mental well being is your roadmap to lasting transformation. Learn how to fuel your body, move with joy, and cultivate mental strength, all without the restrictive rules. Start your journey to sustainable success. Download your guide today.
Friend?
Yeah, we have to take care of ourselves first, right? It's about self leadership. If we are not well ourselves, it's very difficult to show up for someone else. And that
Hmm.
means both at work and at home. So
Hmm.
if we take care of ourselves and we are healthy physically, mentally, and also have social connections, we are socially healthy, then at least we have a foundation to show up for others. Then it's about setting, parameters around ourselves, boundaries to protect ourselves, and be disciplined then on the timing, and separate work from family life, and try not to bring in the laptop in the family space, and give our full attention to our family members when we are there, and when we are at work, give the full attention there. Then it seems to it's working quite seamlessly.
Awesome. And I know we just talked about how this vulnerability. That's fine. And now is let's say we have the stigma also. Like folks normally they feel like, by the way, I don't want to go to the hospital and be seen because I worry about being labeled. Because I back in the days actually we have when you have the diagnosis depression, like you have this is like a is a bad thing for you. So how do we encourage men to go ahead and fix themselves, make sure that they're there, like you mentioned, so that they can be able to provide for others, correct?
Yes, and I know there's still a lot of stigma there, but the beautiful thing is we have this online world now. There's actually anonymous hotlines for almost every problem. There will be doctors, psychologists, counselors. You can have a one-on-one call with a coach, a life coach, and you can have these sessions perhaps in your own time, during your lunch break. You don't have to go in to be seen at the hospital if you're scared of, that someone will see me if I go in and see the doctor. Most of this can be done online these days. And there's also, all these hotlines, helplines full of volunteers who are there to help. And there's some support for everything. It doesn't matter if the person have a gambling addiction, alcohol, drugs, or shopping, or social media addictions, whatever the problem or issue is these days. There's so much help available, and there's so much support and volunteers and helplines that are there, that the help is just there. It's just about taking that first step in action. And that means that we admit to ourselves that we actually need support, and then it's about picking up the phone or booking in a session with someone who can help them.
This is amazing, and I know this is we talk about the stigma, but I think it answers my next question, because I was going to ask you how how can the executive that are experiencing those burnout and maybe the like the the stigma as well. What advice do you have for those guys?
Yeah, it's about being first, really, as I mentioned, to be honest with themselves, because the most of the time, if we have some issues, we perhaps defend them, especially if it's a bad habit or addiction, we are trying to avoid it. But if we hit it straight on, we are honest to ourselves and we get into it, then break the stigma by sorting it out, and be there as a role model, and say that it doesn't matter what bad habits that we got into. The key is how we get out of it, and then we can help others also have those issues and problems. And it's about normalizing these conversations. And I can share an example here with you, because in 2018 I was going through a very difficult time. That started already before, and it was, as I mentioned before, I was let go from my work twice, and when I resigned from my corporate job and started up my own business, it was very difficult at the beginning. I also went through a divorce then, and during this period I lost a lot of my healthy habits, and I started to consume too much alcohol. That became a big problem for me, and I didn't want anyone to catch me. I didn't want anyone to find me or tell me that I'm drinking too much alcohol. So I did everything I could to cover up for this. Eventually, though, I had to be honest. I had to be honest with myself that this has become a problem, and I need to seek help for it. And the stigma then was huge for me to get that help, but I managed to find some anonymous support group and so on that could help me. And since that day, and it's about 6.5 for help, and I haven't had an alcoholic drink. And that is just what the help is there. When we're honest to ourselves, we look out for it, and we just have to put the stigma aside there and get into action and be responsible for ourselves.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. And like we're happy that you got out of it. And you know, folks, actually, some people they keep the count. How many years down, and like people celebrate with that. So I wish you the best, my friend. This is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, sir. So, what role does the technology play in making it worse, or helping this work life balance?
Well, it can do both, right? And it depends how, again, we control it and manage it. If someone has all notifications on and the phone on vibration and loud the whole time, then they're locked, right? Shaking and noises the whole time. So we need to be quite disciplined again, how we control the devices and the hours we touch them, the hours we use them, so we don't let them take over our lives. And if we manage to do that right, then they can be very wonderful and beautiful, just like how we are connecting today, half around the world. And I have my son living in Sweden, and I'm in Asia most of the time. He lives with my ex-wife, and I have managed to connect with him online, and we maintain a good relationship despite living apart, which would have been very difficult without these online tools.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the personal growth and leadership, my friend. So, how can leaders calculate cultivate this emotional intelligence to be, and then in return they have stronger teams.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to growth for professionals, many times we are chasing success. We look at what society looks like. We look at the big roles. We think they come with a car and they come with a higher salary, and we go for that without really questioning us. Is this what I want? Is this really my purpose in life? Then the issue is if we don't do that, if we don't sit down and we don't really know what we want, if we're just changing the success and the money and the fame and everything that comes with that, that's like an illusion. And when someone then realizes, wow, I spent all this time and effort to chase this, but it's not who I am. And that's the issue. And that's what happened to me in my life as well. I was, trying to impress bosses and people and making everyone else happy rather than caring to ask myself, is this what I want? So I think the best thing we can do as a leader is to be authentic and to know what we want in our lives. And if we do what we love and what we're good at, then naturally we are lifting up other people. We don't have to play and act to be. So that is just the thing that I want to say, because I was not meant to be that person that I was in the corporate world. I was just trying to chase something that was not real.
And a lot of times, like you mentioned, a lot of folks, we realize that very late, and sometimes we don't even realize that until it's you know it's over and done with. Yes, sir. So what are the key characteristics for a resilient leader? Because this is something that I'm sure your experiences and stuff like that build you. So what are the characteristics so far that are key for that?
Well, the main benefits here is if someone have been vulnerable, then when you go down, you're gonna be open about it. You will go up and tell people about it because you have built up. Perhaps you have coaches, mentors, you have colleagues and peers who you already know, who you naturally are vulnerable with. So when some crisis happen, and crisis will happen to everyone of us, because that's life. It goes up and down. The difference here is if someone has built up those relationships by being honest and vulnerable, when the crisis and the difficulties happen, they will naturally share it with the people and they will get help. And it's also here the part of just by sharing about the problem, just by speaking up, we will already feel a big relief, and they will be there to help you and support you. So that's so important. But on the other hand, if this person have been keeping silent, secret, taking all the successes for themselves, getting the promotions, getting the paychecks and everything else, and winning by themselves, then they have not shared the wins with anyone. And when they also have asked for help. And that's the most isolated place to be at. Imagine if you have had a personal crisis, perhaps the loss of someone in the family, and you come into the office and there's no one there you can share it with. There's no one to talk to about it. So you will sit there in your own sort of isolation and suffer.
Right. And I think that's why you have folks that are opting to drugs or any other things that are really not good for them. And yeah, is that where this term comes? Is if they say, I mean, it's probably I hear kids say it's lonely at the top. They say this kind of thing. This term is. I see. My friend.
Absolutely. Yeah, and my book is called Executive Loneliness, which is it's lonely at the top is definitely true, and I took it one step further by saying it's really an epidemic in the workplaces because we are not vulnerable, because we are not speaking to each other. And the research I interviewed, about 33% of them either are or had been suffering from isolation in the workplace. So that means that 1/3 are actually suffering from isolation.
And I know there's a group Radiant Health, a colleague. She's she has a she has a company where she helps executives that are going through situations. They're doing yoga. She's teaching them, like the whole dieting as well. This is Dr. Ajmani. I'm dropping her name. So this is amazing, my friend. So it's good that you're advising folks to be vulnerable and also to share, and also be in touch with their mentors and their coaches so that they have people to talk to, not only doing things by themselves, and then when the crisis happens, then they have nowhere to turn to, and then actually it can exacerbate more problems. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, sir. So how can men develop this growth mindset, and overcome these challenges and achieve their goals? Because a lot of times we can forget growth. Don't focus on about how can I be better so that tomorrow I'm able to be even better, because things are changing, like you mentioned, the world is changing, and also like the jobs, they're very unstable. You never know whenever things can change, so it's good to be better yourself. So how can you talk a little bit about the growth mindset?
Tired of fads and frustration? Build sustainable wellness for life. Forget quick fixes that fail to deliver lasting results. Imagine feeling energized, moving confidently, and radiating health for years. Achieving true wellness isn't about exhaustion or deprivation. It's about building habits that fit seamlessly into your life. Invest in yourself today for lasting fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being. Ready to transform your life? Click here to learn more. By purchasing the book, you'll gain lifetime access to updates, newsletters, future editions, and exclusive wellness bonuses from the author. Start your journey to wellness now.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, it's very important that also as men, that we have our own safe spaces, that, we have a few close friends who we are vulnerable with. And I know that women typically are better at this, and we need to really shape up here as men to, talk to our friends, talk to our close friends. And I used to have great friends also in the past. We went to play golf, we watched sport, we were drinking beer together, and we had a good time together. But I didn't share openly or honestly what was going on in my life. I didn't want to bother them. So we had a great time together. But then the next day when I came back to the office, the issues were still there, and I had not shared it with my friends. So we just need to really learn to be more open and vulnerable with our close friends, and step by step open up to them. But also we can also do what women have done in the past. They have women's group, support groups, men's group now are coming up, and I'm also running one men's group. We are 17 men inside, and we are meeting once a week together for 1 hour. We're discussing everything from masculinity to manhood to topics such as relationships. Sometimes we discuss sleep, nutrition, or whatever it is. So that we need to have our safe spaces, and by doing that, we then practice our vulnerability muscle. We just constantly practice and being comfortable by sharing about our feelings and so on. Also, this is a big change for men when we do this. Also, first on a one-on-one level with our friends, but then also in a group environment.
This is amazing, and I think this is we share the same passion, and this is with the dad puzzle. I'm in close contact with a couple of folks, and we hope to generate something big as well that can be useful to dads, and men in general. This is amazing, my friend. Thank you. And how can you, let's say, dads, we try to connect with our kids and stuff like that. How can we foster that like that intelligence, because it's not that easy, because sometimes we just think, oh yeah, the kid, they can be complicated, my friend. To understand them, you need to be patient, and of course do it together with your wife, with your partner, to make sure that we understand what the kid is saying or is wanting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have a son who is 15 years of age now, so he's right in the teenage years. And what I'm trying to do with him is what same as if I'm in a team environment. It's really to have this coaching mindset. So rather than me telling him what he should do, when there's an issue, I ask him to think about it and come up with, how would he like to handle it? Is there anything I can do to support him, and so on? So I just keep asking questions. And one example, for example, was he had some dilemma at his old school, and the other kids were doing things that were, not on. They were, for example, going into a shop and shoplifting. And he called me that evening and being very sad. And he said, "Dad, what should I do? If I do steal, maybe the police catch me and my friends. But if I don't steal, my friends will bully me and beat me. What should I do?" And I asked him back the question to him, what options do you have? What can you do? What should we do? And we just had a very open discussion about this. And then there was other issues, similar things coming up and coming up and coming up. And I kept asking him to think about different suggestions, solutions. And he was the one to come up with and say, "I think I should change school. I think I should change school." And I think, okay, I listened to him, I heard him out. I said, "Okay, and if you change school, which schools would you like to go to?" And then he came back in with 2-3 different schools. He presented to me, "These are the options, Dad." And then we discussed through it. And in the end, it was his own decision with my support and also with the mother's support of changing school. And these problems have now disappeared in his new school. So it could have been easy for me right away to say, "Okay, noted, well, we pull you out of the school and we move you to school." But then it would have been my decision. And once he came in there, and of course he would feel a bit lonely and isolated the first days in the new school, he would have come and blamed me. "Why did you move me on my class?" And I didn't want it that way.
Right. 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 Hmm. Oh, amazing! Wow. Thank you. It's good that you're involving him like that. Because this is a good. It's a good learning point for dads, because a lot of times we think, like we give the freedom to many other things, when they're little, but at the teenage year and above, I think we need to also increase that freedom and chat with them and explore what they have in their mind. As you can see, he was bright enough to know, what, I cannot really fix this situation because I don't want to be bullied. At the same time, I don't want to be a bad guy. So might as well just be out of here. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a hopeless situation. It was completely hopeless. So I'm glad he was the one to suggest that it was not going to work anymore. And sometimes you have to break the pattern. We need to cut poor relationships if it's one-on-one or in a group. We should not be in a toxic environment like it clearly was. And of course, also behind the scene, we also spoke to the school. We talked to the other teacher, the teacher and the parents and so on. But also, but they didn't come with any solution. So I'm glad that at least we managed to pull out of that situation.
Amazing. So what can fathers play in challenging the traditional gender roles and creating a more, I guess, I'm more of an old school, but I need to know what other dads they're thinking about this, because I know, some parents, there is a quite challenging times right now because you have, let's say some some parenting will be saying, "Oh, by the way, you're, you know, like they make it in a way that kids should accept to be either or." But you know what I mean. But I think I'm one of those folks, that believe like, okay, like you're a dude, you're a like you're a guy, and this is a girl and stuff like that. So what's anyways? I don't want to put you in a place. I realize this is a little, it can be like a political thing. So my my late dad used to ask me, please stay away from politics.
Yeah. So I also try to stay away from politics, but the way I try to do it with my son is that, rather than pushing my agenda on him, I'm trying to come. One example of this is with online gaming. Like many other teenage boys, he liked to play games. And it was a few years ago, and then I was seeing a child psychologist because I wanted to repair or strengthen my relationship with my son. And this lady gave me some tips, including telling me to map out what is it he loves to do, and then for me to come into his world. And I went through that exercise, really mapping out what was important to him in his life, and then I tried to match him with that. And we actually set up a time every Saturday for a few hours, and we continued this for about 2 years, where every weekend I would log on my computer, he would log on his, and we would play the game that he liked to do. I had to learn to play the game, and he showed me around in his world, and it was on his terms. And we built a very, very strong foundation in these years, and it's about 4 or 5 years ago. So he was around 11 years of age. At an important time, I was there for him, coming into his world. rather than telling him to stop playing or something. And that is the foundation of a very strong relationship that we have today.
This is amazing. And actually, when you go, it's good when we do that because then we can redirect them if we see something is a bad direction, and we can explain based on our experience why that way is not good or something like that. This is amazing, my friend. Yes, sir. So, my friend, how can folks find you? You're a very, you know, I like about how you're active. The most I've done for myself was a marathon. That was the most I've done, and there's actually, I have a story about that for folks that are starting. Make sure that you're used to getting cheered upon because this was the first time for me. I always been training really well. I have a good pace. I don't want to say the pace, but I was good. And so on that day, it was a Chicago marathon. There's a slope and there's flat, and people are cheering. This is the first time people are cheering for me. So guess what? I went above my speed, so I ended up crashing at mile 16, but I still made it. But it was a walking game, my friend. It was horrible. So how can you advise? What lesson can we gather for in real life about this? Because maybe I'm sure there's a lesson on this.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, when I was facing with some challenges in my life, I went to seek help. And the same with running and triathlon and so on. I signed up for coaches, and I thought, well, I sign up with some of the best, and then I just copy them and follow the agenda. And they've done now for a few years. And if we do that, then naturally we're going to come very good at it. So that's my tip for everyone. Don't try to do it yourself. Don't reinvent the wheel. Find a coach or someone who can take you through it.
Please, please. And how can people find you? I know you're on LinkedIn as well. You're on Instagram.
Yes, indeed. I'm on LinkedIn, and my name is Nick Jonsson. It's spelled NickJonsson. Otherwise, also people can find my book on Amazon. It's called Executive Loneliness.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll make sure that I share all the important details in our chats. And I'm looking. People are still shy to comment and stuff, which is good. Next time, because a lot of times when I speak with people after the talk, yeah, they have some questions or they share some great ideas. Like, why didn't you share that when we are talking? But anyways, I will share that with you whenever I hear any feedback. And thank you again for doing this, my friend.
Thank you so much also for the invite.
Thank you, boss. Thank you once.